If you just joined us, this is International Forum, reaching you live from Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria. Quickly and briefly, let's take a look at some stories making the rounds globally. Let's move straight down to Russia, where Russia right now has gone berserk. Despite the negotiation, despite the zeal, despite all Russian drones, missiles, they are tormenting seriously Kyiv, Ukrainian capital. You could see the arrays of missiles, the arrays of drones used to destabilize that particular country of Kiev and some other cities around Russia. You know, when it all started, do not join NATO. That was how all this started. Well, 3 years and counting. Donald Trump came into the scene trying to really broker peace. But what really happened was that Ukraine went to provoke Russia. Let's say the war clip. All right, Ukraine went to provoke Russia by going to their airstrip and dismantling some of their warplanes. Yes. And when Donald Trump called Putin said, look, for what they've done, there's going to be retribution. He said it, and Trump said he just can't stop it because Ukrainians were the ones that really stirred the hornets. Next was like expected. So they were expecting it, but the intensity right now is what I don't know if Ukraine can really withstand. It's like an array of drones, missiles, everything, rain, torrential, you just name it. And I don't think Kiev will be the same again for a very long time. Aside the Donetsk region, this time around, Russia is hammering on the capital just because of that singular mistake. They were trying to broker peace. Ukraine were happy about it, saying it took them 18 months to plan. They achieved success, but the backlash of the success they were enjoying, now that's what you can see right now on the screen. And Russia doesn't want to abate that. It's just hammering them back and forth. I keep on wondering what will make Putin to be satisfied that there's not enough damage for them to come sit down and really talk. That's what we're waiting for. Until then, I don't think Russia will stop. I don't think they will until they have their satisfaction. I'm going to pray for Ukraine. We don't have anything again to provoke Russia, but we just pray for peace to reign in that region. Well, that's what I'm going to bring to you right now in this particular segment, News Around the World, because we have to discuss extensively what is really going on between Israel and Iran. Yes, he is a lecturer, international law, international politics, international relation, history, you just name it. Join me to welcome, I call him Professor Don Felix Osaime. Welcome to International Forum. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Wilson.
Viewers
at home, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, right, very close to me, he is Cyril Kumbawa, an astute political analyst, both local and international politics. He is well grounded. When you start talking, you get to know that really he knows his own. He's not talking about international relation. I wonder why you're not talking about local politics. What are you afraid of, Cyril?
Thank you, Wilson, for having me once more. Right. Thank you, viewers. You're welcome to the show.
All right. Joining us virtually all the way from Lagos, he is an entrepreneur, a politician, both local and international politics. He's well grounded. Join me to welcome Paul Ogido. Honorable, it's a pleasure to have you join us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson. And I say good afternoon to my fine gentleman in the studio. Good afternoon to Edo State.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. So I want to start off with Prof. Nobody saw it coming, but Trump said he was in the know, but US don't have a hand in it. What do you think might have prompted Israel to go ahead without taking permission, so to speak, to attack Iranian nuclear site?
Wilson, this question is a loaded question in the sense that you have asked a question, you provided an answer that is taking the substance of the question away. Israel does not need permission to carry out the acts it's carried out. Saying nobody expected this to will sound far-fetched, knowing that since October last year, after the attack by Hamas on Israel, it has never been totally off the books that Israel could launch an attack on Iran. The only thing is that people were actually wondering, and analysts were also saying, will Israel go that far? And knowing that Iran is always in the background of attacks on Israel, carried out particularly by Hamas, which is within the occupied territory, and Hezbollah, which operates from outside. Of course, Hezbollah has the strong backing of Iran. In fact, Hezbollah is seen as the non-state element of Iran, that they are seen as a terrorist organization. So if you look at it from that angle, it was never far-fetched. In fact, if I take you back down memory lane, there was a day in our discussion here, you raised this question, will Israel attack Iran? Then it was just Hezbollah that they were attacking in Syria before Assad's regime collapsed. It was in this same studio that that question came up. And we did say then that the future is pregnant. Nobody knows. So in international politics and diplomacy, you cannot remove all cards on the table. That's the card Israel has pulled out today. But that card again, as I started earlier on, is not far-fetched because Israel has always said it. This is not even the first time they've gone after Iranian nuclear facilities. The only difference is that this time it is sustained onslaught against facilities, resources, human personnel, everything. So it's an all-out attack. And the reason for this is not far-fetched. If you listen to the broadcast given by Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, he said it clearly that Iran is within months, though he didn't specify the timeline. There's no clock time. But he said it could be months, it could be weeks, it could even be within a year. That the enrichment program carried out by Iran, as even validated by the International Atomic Agency, is that they have attained more than 60% enrichment of the materials that can be used to make 9 warheads.
9?
Yes. It is the International Atomic Agency that made that claim. Netanyahu is also having the same intelligence. And the intelligence that they got is that the Iranians are very close. And remember too, Iran has this claim, which Netanyahu also mentioned openly, that the United States of America is the great Satan. Israel is the little Satan. So the Iranians do not hide their claim that their ambition is to annihilate the Israeli state. It's not only Iranians. Of course, that is after the rhetoric of the Palestinians and some the Arab states around Israel. But the Iranians are also in the same frame of mind. So Netanyahu also argued, as he explained, that if before the Second World War, between 1933 and 1939, the policy of appeasement was what was used. Oh, let us appease Hitler. Maybe if we allow him to take Czechoslovakia, maybe if we allow him to take Sudetenland, that will calm him down. He said it failed. And he has described from what he said that the Iranian regime is the most dangerous regime in the world. And it's about to possess the most dangerous weapon of war. That Israel will not allow that to happen.
All right.
Because in 1939 to 1945, this was the kind of scenario that played out that led to the loss of over 6 million lives of the Jewish
nation
ethnic stock.
I'll come back to you, Prof. Thank you for laying the foundation for this discussion. Now, he said Israel do not need permission from anyone, because I was like, opinion, before you go for that kind of strike, you have to inform America that these boats, we don't have to, they are still allies. So what do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Wilson. Well, for starters, we must establish the fact that Israel and Iran are both sovereign nations with their right to self-determination and how they want to live with each other. But my worry presently isn't so much about the conflict in the Middle East. It's just the state of affairs globally. You know, there's been, the world has been a melting pot of cataclysmic events lately. But right now, you know, so much attention wasn't even given to the war in Ukraine up until things started to, you know, really spiral down in an ugly manner. For example, while Russia and Ukraine were at it, India and Pakistan, their neighbor, got to a brief war. And now it's the Middle East. One woke up with the news of the Ahmedabad plane crash, which was saddening enough, only to hoping that there might be respite from that situation, only to wake up the next morning to the news of bombardment of Iran by the state of Israel. As far as striking Iran goes, Israel knows that they cannot carry out that scale of operation without, you know, being in tandem with their ally. As a matter of fact, the president of the US was aware. He is the most, Israel is the most strategic ally of the United States in the region. They have military pacts, all right? And Israel will not, you know, go about such scale of operation without letting the US know. That was why, if you see, there were conflicting reports when the news broke, because the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was asked, and he said the US had nothing to do with it. In fact, as a matter of fact, that Israel took a unilateral decision and they were not aware. When Donald Trump was questioned, the president of the US, he said he was aware and that Israel was going to attack. Recently, despite such denials, his rhetoric has been that he, upon assuming office, gave Iran 60 days.
60 days, yeah.
So after that ultimatum, anything could happen. And he has also threatened that except Iran falls back in line, goes back to the negotiation table, they will be held to pay. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that has been the regulator, according to the former Iranian, the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, that had been in operation until it was ripped off by the same Donald Trump's administration. Now, the inspectors went, and the last press conference they had was that Iran is found to be culpable in violation, right, of the terms that they had set out, because they had claimed originally that their plan for uranium enrichment was for energy purposes and not for warfare. And so far, they're not having fuel rods that are going to fuel ballistic missiles. So as a matter of fact, Israel would not have that on their nose. First of all, it has to be established here that before now, the Jewish state has always strove for survival. As a matter of fact, because Iran has been very open with this rhetoric of destruction to Israel and America, and you know, as a matter of fact, there was this nuclear scientist who was assassinated in one of those waves of this, not this recent one, in the previous waves of cleansing. Now, he had a dying wish, a death wish. He had written in his will what he wanted to be remembered for. He wanted it to be written on his grave, on his tombstone, as the man who obliterated Israel. Such is their conviction, such is their beliefs. Meanwhile, prior to this time, there's been relatively peace between Israel and Iran up until the Shah was ousted from power. The revolution that brought in the mullahs, Khamenei, has always been that is not just opposed to the Jewish nation, but also opposed to a whole lot of other countries in the Middle East. For example, they are Shiites, and they don't agree so much with Saudi Arabia. As a matter of fact, you don't like Saudi and many other Arab nations.
Okay.
So if you find, my fellow panelists here had established that other countries, you know, don't like Israel, but they are comfortable with Israel being a sovereign nation. They had the Six-Day War, they've had other conflicts in the past, and everyone finds that it's best for these ones to be alone. But because Iran lacks the leverage to attack Israel directly, they've always been using proxies. We said about Hezbollah, We said about in
Hamas and
Lebanon,
the
we
rest
said
of
about
it.
Hamas.
I'll come back to
We
you,
said about the
Cyril.
Houthis in Yemen.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Now let's move straight down to Honorable Paul. Let's get to hear what he has to say about all this, because it sounds right now it's like Iran lied to the world. So what do you feel about this attack?
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. We pray that there will be peace in our world. What is going on right now is a very big problem to everyone, not just those at work, but all international community to which Nigeria also belongs. The problem between Iran and Israel has been a very long-standing one. During the Cold War, they were still getting on well until 1979 revolution, Iranian Revolution. That was where the problem started. And from that time till now, especially in 1991, after the Gulf War, the problem got to a full scale. And like my co-panelist here said, the problem that Israel have with Iran is the fear. I think they have a phobia. I call it phobia. I don't know if anybody agree with me on this, that one day Iran will get up to annihilate Israel. And of course, there are elements of truth in those fears. Iran is one of the most deadly nations in the Middle East. And if Israel have enemies, if America have enemies in the Middle East, Iran will be the chief of those enemies. And for Iran to develop nuclear weapons, those ballistic missiles intend to enrich, will be a real danger to Israel. And Israel have complained severally. You remember in 2018, April of 2018, the Prime Minister Netanyahu revealed to the world that Iran had been lying about his uranium enrichment. They said it was for the purpose of their own development, but the truth is they have an ulterior motive to develop atomic bombs, nuclear weapons, to ensure that they are able to carry out those dastardly acts they've been doing. Because, like you know, Iran have been behind most of the attacks on Israel. The Hamas attacks, the Hezbollah and all that, Iran is the one backing them up. There are claims to back up that. And so it's been a very big problem to Israel. And Israel have been watching. Israel in 2018 was able to get, some of those facts, and they revealed it openly to the world that these guys, Iran, they are developing nuclear weapons. Their uranium enrichment is for the purpose of mass destruction. And so since that time, Israel has been waiting for a time like this to come so they can strike.
All right. All right.
And when this happened, it didn't take some people by surprise. Like me, I wasn't surprised because I knew that with the war going on in Palestine all this while, the Gaza war, Iran have always been outspoken against Israel and America.
I'll come back to you. I will come back to you. I will come back to you. Just hold on. Well, it's like all of us like saying, or all of you rather, are saying that Iran is like the bad nation here, but Iran is a sovereign nation. Since North Korea can develop the nuclear capability, who says that Iran cannot have one? France, they have theirs. India, Pakistan, they all have theirs. So who in the world have a monopoly over the possession of nuclear warheads? If US can have it, Russia has it, why not Iran? Prof.
Wilson, we should be open enough to admit to certain realities. In international relations, nations are primarily concerned with two issues. One is their own survival. The second issue they are concerned with is power. How do they accumulate power, and to what end will it be used? So power is the currency of international relations. It is in the search of power that states collide. Even while they are, because two dominant principles will exist. There's either conflict or there is concord. They are either cooperating or they are fighting. So that's the nature of the relationship in the international political system. So states are either friends or they are belligerents. There is no other position. They work together or they work against each other. Now, going back to the point you raised about nuclear weapon possession, when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was...
All right, Prof, you just want to go for a short break. When we return, you continue with your analysis. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and I have seasoned analysts with me in the studio to talk about Israel-Iran tension, unearthing the issues. But with you, Prof, but as you go with the answer, who originally developed Iran's nuclear weapon? They want to be saying, no, how did they get the knowledge? Please continue from there.
All right. I was at the point here I was talking about former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad went to United Nations General Assembly, and while he was addressing the United Nations General Assembly, he made the point clearly that Iran has a nuclear right. That as a sovereign state, they have the capability to develop any weapon they want to develop. On the surface, that is also true. It's acceptable. All right, let us point out a very important element here. A tool can be converted to a weapon. Your knife is a very good tool used in the kitchen to cut meat, cut vegetables and everything, but it can become a weapon. Now, the argument of the Iranians was that they were developing their nuclear capability for civilian purposes, energy generation, medical treatment and the rest. The same nuclear material can be converted to a weapon. And you ask the question, why would they be prevented from developing it? Who started it? First, it was even the Americans that developed Iran. In fact, it was America built Iran up to the revolution of the Shah. They were very good allies, close friends. The technology that the Iranians are leveraging on today was originally developed by Americans. It was the revolution that led to the fall of the Shah of Iran that brought the Ayatollahs to power in Iran, and they held Americans hostage for more than 440 days, stormed the American embassy in Tehran. All those things led to a break in their relationship. And the Iranians have become full-scale revolutionaries. And from then, they created a theocratic republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran. So it's a mix of religion and modernity, even though their government is classified generally as a dictatorial regime. Americans helped them to build their technology. But the way the world is today, the International Atomic Energy Agency that regulates nuclear development today has put a cap on some of those developments. Before 1945, before the Second World War, states could just attack other states easily. But from 1945, the United Nations ruled out the issue of attacks from state to state or state upon state for a reason. It would be a recipe for anarchy. So they had to put a halt. In the same way, states who already possess nuclear weapons are of the view that the proliferation should be stopped. And Iran, as well as North Korea, these two states are considered as irrational states. And if you ask me why, because the possibility of their going to the extreme without restraint is obvious. And you ask a further question, why did they allow North Korea and why not Iran? The reason for North Korea getting our own faster is because of the area in which North Korea operates. One, China is directly backing North Korea.
Okay.
Even though China and Russia also support Iran, but they are not at the same level that China and North Korea are operating on. Two, the location of Iran in the Middle East is extremely sensitive. We are talking about Iran and Israel, and the Israelis are saying that they are facing existential threats because of Iran if Iran develops nuclear capability. We are looking at only Israel. The Iranians will not even mind if I'm allowed to give a personal opinion here. They may even use it on Saudi Arabia.
On Saudi Arabia,
The Shiite and the Sunni,
they always have loggerhead. I'll come back to you, Prof. I'll come back to you. Cyril, now there is a law. Do not attack another nation, no matter the provocation. That is a law to prevent further escalation or preventing Third World War. But how come Israel chooses to break that particular rule? And that's what the Iranians are coming around saying, Israel, you don't have the right to attack. And of course, they retaliated.
Well, thank you once again. The activities of the Committee of Nations are regulated openly. There is the United Nations Assembly, for which every sovereign nation under the earth have representatives. So they can always, talk about these positions. Israel is only looking at survival. The open rhetoric of annihilating Israel is provocative enough. As a matter of fact, then the deceit by the Iranian nation, in fact, they're not so much about Israel. If they have their way, they also want to attack the United States of America. Now, for every time there is a conflict of any sort, the first thing they resort to is that they want to block the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is a strategic waterway between the waters of Iran, international waters of Iran, and that of Oman. 20% of the world's energy supplies passes through that route. When you block it because you have a boundary claim, you disrupt energy supply across the world. When they move for such, that is when the US comes out to say, no, there would not be individuals and industries that are depending on fossil fuel products from the Middle East to power their nations. A lot will go wrong. And most of those systems are automated. So you're not challenging, you want to bring an imbalance to the equilibrium of things in the world because of a personal provocation. Don't forget that Israel and Egypt went to war over the Suez Canal. The same thing. Well, at last they had peace with the Camp David Accord that was brokered by President Jimmy Carter in his time. Yeah. Don't forget that even that peace was a fragile one, because it eventually led to the assassination of Anwar Sadat when he got back. So now these interests are not just those of Israel, but in a way, those of the world. The world wants things to flow freely. If Iran can just be transparent that, okay, fine, there's a level of enrichment that is required to power civilian purposes, right? Energy generation, medicine, etc. So they are not being transparent, and they are open. As a matter of fact, there are many clips out there of parliamentarians in Iran chanting death to America. Yes, death to Israel. If they have, that's what their objective is. And Israel, having been through the Holocaust, are taking a precautious stand. And the only way they have to do this is to prevent nuclear capability in the hands of an irrational nation that declares itself openly as an enemy. It's not just Iran. Syria succeeded in building a nuclear reactor, and they hid it successfully for 7 years. They were at the final point of getting their centrifuges to work. That was when the Mossad discovered it. They brought it down overnight.
All right.
Saddam Hussein tried. They brought it down. Well, the imbalance here, perceivably, is the fact that Israel, while trying to prevent other nations from becoming nuclear powers, they are nuclear power by themselves. But of course, in terms of community and peaceful coexistence, I don't think they would want to resort to
I'll come back to
such
you,
extremities,
I'll come back
and
to you.
especially given the fact that they have the understanding with the West.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia and other strategic Middle Eastern nations are leaning towards the policies of the West.
I'll come back to you.
When the economy is liberal, everybody gets to profit.
But
Iran
okay.
wants to maintain an extreme religious position.
I'll come back to you. Now let's move straight down to Lagos, where Honorable Paul Ogido is standing by. You've heard the opinions and views of my analysts in the studio. Now, do you feel that Donald Trump coming in to say that both nations should cut a deal? How do you think this deal will work out? Because right now, Iran is throwing missiles at Israel. Israel also been strategic because it's like, targeting major, mainstream survival lines, so to speak, of Iran. Iran, the other is just throwing missiles. So how do you think this deal can go?
For me, I don't think there's going to be a deal right now, because Iran believes that Israel is not bigger than them in any way, and they are ready to retaliate. And that Israel is not the real fear of Iran in this war. The real big man to fear is the US. Of course, we know that whatever interest Israel has is the same interest of the United States. And there is just no way the United States will not be involved, whether directly or indirectly, in this war. So I want to strongly believe that Iran is not going to bow down right now. They will not back out of this war, no matter what. That definitely Israel had attacked most of their facilities, military facilities. But that is not to say that they don't have the wherewithal to cope in this war. But my fear here is that it's going to spread very fast. It's going to spread because when the Israeli-Palestinian war started the other time, the war in Gaza Strip, the fear of the world was that it's going to spread to the other parts of the Middle East. And that is what we are gradually seeing. But we can only hope that America
All right, it's like we are having serious connectivity issue there. We're able to reestablish contact. Definitely, we will come back to Honorable Paul Ogido. He said this may not end it because Iran feels that Israel is not bigger than them in any way. Do you see a full-blown war?
Well, the war has already commenced, so it cannot be more full-blown than it is right now. The only question is the timeline that it will take for allies to jump into the fray. Allies such as the United States of America, and as of now, the United States of America has deployed a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier to the very area I mentioned, and the Strait of Hormuz, because Iran is already making some claims that they will soon barricade that point. And once Iran goes to the Strait of Hormuz, America has entered the fray. America is saying right now that they are not directly involved. They are calling on Netanyahu to work out something with the Iranians. As of this morning, Netanyahu has enlarged the argument. Up to yesterday, Monday, the initial plan was to ensure that they decimate the nuclear capability system of Iran. As at that time, they started the attacks on Friday, early morning on Friday, about 3 a.m. on Friday morning. They went after most of the nuclear development facilities, particularly the one in Natanz. They knocked those ones out. They went to the one at Eshafan. They knocked those ones out. They went to the ones at Fordo, and they knocked them out. But the ones at Fordo are better developed because they are underground. And now the Israeli attack system, they have good missiles, but they do not have the MOPs. MOPs are massive ordnance penetrators, the one that can go into rocks and bunkers. They do not have that. Only the US has that. If Israel had it, Fordo would have been obliterated by now. So Fordo is still partially functional. But Natanz, Eshafan, they've been removed. Then they also went after Arak and Pashin, where they have military facilities. They've been able to do excessive damage. In fact, as of today, we can actually say that Iran's nuclear development program has been set back massively. Let us also look at the fact that key officers of the Iranian Republican Guard Corps, their commander-in-chief has been removed.
Neutralized, yeah.
Neutralized. The head of their intelligence in IRGC has been neutralized. The chief of staff of the Ayatollah has been neutralized. 6 key scientists in the nuclear development program of Iran have been neutralized. A lot of senior officers in the military, in the Air Force, Iranian oil facilities, I think Sharan oil depot and refinery is on fire right now. So Iran has taken major hits. Iran is also launching missiles into Israel. Of course, we are talking of the Iron Dome of Israel. What's the Iron Dome? It's a missile defense system. You shoot missiles at us, we have interceptors that go into the air and neutralize them before they get to the ground. So it's not, as we think, an iron pot that will stop missiles from landing in Israel. No. So there have been some
damages here and there.
Yes, airports,
right.
roadside, residential areas. Israel has lost close to 30 persons. Iran has lost over 250. Now, what is the challenge here? The critical challenge now is that we are looking at an expansion. The expansion has not happened as of today, but it will likely happen in the next few days because as of Monday, which is yesterday, coming into today, Netanyahu has now come out to say that there's a possibility that they will go after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
I'll come back to you on that. Now, that's the question I want to ask you. Donald Trump gave a very strong one and said, Israel, don't kill this man. Let him be. Do you feel Benjamin will listen to that
Netanyahu
advice?
said they have to defang Iran.
Well, as it is, the way the Prime Minister of Israel is assessing the situation, the permanent solution to the aggression between Iran and Israel and the best approach to resetting the relationship between both nations would be regime change. As a matter of fact, while they were going about this, their killing escapades, they had the supreme leader already mapped out. He was, in fact, they had him. All they needed was, like I said, I initially stated that Israel would not take a unilateral decision of such scale without consulting with the US. As we speak, if Donald Trump had said, take him out, by now, news would have been everywhere that Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Now, the issue is, how did we get here? The fight between Israel and Iran is not a fair fight. Honorable Paul Ogido has said that, mentioned that the Iranians don't see the Israelis as bigger people than themselves. Presently, Iran is at its weakest. They
have their drones.
Their air defense,
they have their missiles.
Their air defense system is gone. Whatever they have, they're deploying now is just reserves. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister of Israel can tell you that they own the skies over Tehran.
He said that.
He said they are weakened.
They do.
There is no defense. Why they are also being respectful? Because the man has made it clear that the Iranians are not their enemies.
It's the regime.
It's the Ayatollah regime. Their targets have been agents of the regime, connected to the nuclear enrichment and the heads of the military organizations. So for Iran, they just throw missiles at civilian populations. If Israel were to play like that by now, there'll be no building standing in Tehran. It will be rubble. Because first of all, on the Friday morning when they attacked Iran, over 200 jets flew into Tehran undetected. As far as the fight goes, there is no real clear line. They know that Israel can decimate them. That is why they're trying to maintain a face before their people. The Islamic Republic, if you listen, the president has changed his tone recently. Ayatollah has changed his tone, but they have to keep a face before the Iranians. Now, they are ready to talk. They want peace, but they have a condition. And what is the condition? That the regime will not be changed. If they will commit to, okay, let's resolve this, but leave the regime in power, the Iranians will capitulate this moment. As we speak, the capital Tehran is almost deserted. And when you see the F-35 jets of Israel over the skies, and the way they maneuver and shoot flares, you know that these guys are practically untouchable. You can go with 200 aircraft and come and then you can't even, at most you lose one. That's not a fair fight. So the Israeli air squadrons, the Hatashim pilots, are some of the best in the world. Now, these are some of the benefits they get from their military cooperation with the US and exchange. Most of the jets and they use are provided by the US. The US, in fact, as they arm Israel, they also arm Saudi Arabia. So it's not so much about religion, it's just Iran. Don't forget, I emphasize. So before the revolution, Iran was one of the most strategic allies to the US in the region. Once they ousted the Shah and his family, they turned everything around. And now, for peace to reign, Israel is saying it has to be regime change. And I must tell you, the vast population, ordinary people in Iran, are with Israel. This is a country that executes citizens for not properly wearing hijab. They have the worst human rights records, repression. In fact, the Iranians are praying that the Israelis should not give up, or they should come and liberate them. Yes, there are pockets of orders that, they are close to the state. The truth is that Iran has too much money for its citizens to suffer the way they do. Go and check unemployment. Go and check inflation. With all they have, they would rather spend billions funding Hezbollah. They would rather spend not millions of dollars, billions of dollars to fund Hamas, to fund the Houthis in Yemen, and other radical fundamentalist groups across the Middle East. Why their citizens
are suffering.
But
that's saying it's because of the sanctions placed on Iran. That's why they are suffering. Anyway,
the sanctions are not unilateral.
Okay, well, we have just a minute to go. I know you have so much to say about this conflict, but we have to work within the time given to us. How do you think all this will end, Prof? Well, look at the crystal ball. How do you think this will end?
Listen, getting to the crystal ball, I will tell you that this is a developing story. We've not even scratched deep into the matter. Israel is still going to push to achieve its objective of reducing to the barest minimum Iran's nuclear development plans. And they've succeeded to a large extent. Even the International Atomic Energy Agency's latest report is saying that massive damage has been done to Iran's projections. That is already one major achievement. That of regime change that Israel may be pushing for, Benjamin Netanyahu will not get the nod of President Donald Trump on that. Because Donald Trump has made it clear that if you start that, you are going to create a very big backlash in the whole region. That will not likely favor them. But they are going to likely instigate the Iranian citizens to speak out against the regime. That is what they are going to likely do. But to openly take out the supreme ruler,
they wouldn't do that.
They are not.
Thank you so much, Prof. That's the last line on this discussion. Cyril, what's your own prediction or projection in this particular matter?
As it were, I think that the regime has already capitulated. They are only now playing for self-preservation. Because I mentioned earlier, this is not a fair fight. And if you look at what else can they do? Shoot more missiles? In addition to the defense system you have in Israel, the US has also been joining them to shoot away, to repel missiles. And what they do, because they know that they can't hit Israel directly, they can gather and shoot hundreds of projectiles at once, knowing that more than 5 won't land. Is that how to fight? You can't succeed with such. They know they are weakened. They are just trying to keep a face. And I hope that this would bring them to the table.
All right.
Sign the nuclear deal. And
They've signed already, but they keep breaking the
no,
deal.
the JCPOA was broken. We understand the circumstances.
All right, all right.
And because they were desperate to lift sanctions. But now I believe that they've seen enough. And if you look at the entire regime is almost obliterated. It's just the supreme leader that is left.
Thank you.
His proxies, Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas was taken out in Tehran.
Thank you.
Malam Saeed Hassan Nasrallah was taken out
already
in Lebanon.
Our time is up.
With a bunker buster.
Our time is up. Well,
so they can do photo.
Thank you. But Donald Trump said you have to cut a deal. Do you see Ayatollah saying yes? Let's really talk. In the nearest future, let's say days, weeks, months from now, how do you think all this will end? We do not know, but eventually a deal must be cut out. We'll do it again next week Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.